Welcome back to Ag Marketing IQ In Depth. Today we're talking to Eric Relph over at Commstock Investments, and we're taking a little bit of a look at what's happening in livestock. We know, CattleCon just happened, and we've had a bit of news when it comes to livestock for the food pyramid, for prices, for Argentina, and in a lot of ways, it just seems like everything's coming up roses, or maybe when it comes to ranching, it's coming up clover. So want to talk to us a little bit about the good growing weather we've got, Eric?
Yeah, whatever it is, it's coming up green. We've had really cooperative conditions for not only grazing, but feeding in a lot of the country. And just when it started to get a little dicey for winter wheat grazing, then here comes another round of moisture and we start to improve conditions again and buys us another couple of weeks on that grazing wheat. So the pounds have been easy to come by as far as feeding conditions. And that has continued driving our carcass weights and continued keeping cattle to the forefront of people's minds. When it's miserable conditions, you don't want to be out there feeding livestock and everybody cusses it and hates it and let's get them to town. And here we are, we've had a pretty mild winter with very few exceptions. And that's been pretty much nationwide. And so this becomes a story that comes to fruit later when we're talking about 800 and 900 pound animals over the last couple of months. By the time those animals get fed up to today's weights, when they get up into that 15 to 1600 pound range, we may have a lot more supply available than what we realize today. And so the biggest bearish story right now actually is these great conditions that we're experiencing right now. But that's going to take time to develop, and we'll see how much of that actually comes to fruit. This is something that I've been really keen on the last couple of days as I really dissect, okay, what could hit this market? Maybe it's carcass weights, maybe it's a number of available animals to the packers. But right now, the market's pretty well 10 feet tall and bulletproof. We just saw record-setting live cattle cash last week on both a live basis and a dress basis. So pretty euphoric stuff out there that's continuing to push this market towards the previous highs that we had before the big correction to start the year.
Yeah, that all makes sense. To torture the analogy, let me ask you, is Argentina more like a BB than an actual bull?
Yeah, it really is. And probably just a spring-loaded. I wouldn't even call it an air-powered BB. The Argentine quota deal is really nothing in my mind. Yet they changed the quota. They changed it from 20,000 tons to 100,000 tons. Yes, you can say the quota was changed to a 5-fold quota, but they've been importing around 45,000 tons anyway. So even if they do come to full fruit on this 100,000 pound quota, then they're doing double what they did. And quite frankly, we need the supply at this point in time. So, and I think it's an ever moving target also. I don't think that they're going to keep import numbers way up if we don't need them. But for now, really, our hamburger supply needs that beef.
Sure. We're coming into grilling season. I live in the South. Yeah. We all grill, and hell, it was 60 degrees this week in Northwest Iowa. I mean, this is just stuff that you do not experience in the month of February, and it's got everybody's energy going. That's for sure. That's good. Now, there is one thing that's a little bit more of a threat, and let's talk about how big a threat New World screwworm is. We've had the incident in Florida. I think there was another incident with New World screwworm. Where are we on that, and where do you see that impacting the market?
Yeah, so the biggest news about New World screwworm is not necessarily the threat in the U.S. right now. It's the trajectory of the cases within certain mileage criteria that the USDA tracks. So the big number that the USDA tracks is within 400 miles of the southern border of the U.S.-Mexican border. So the southern border of the U.S., northern border of Mexico. Within 400 miles of that border in the month of January, we had almost 100 cases in that 400-mile perimeter. Now, that was way beyond what we saw in December. So far in February, we're halfway through the month, and we've seen 25 cases, and they update that every Thursday. So while there's been some definite tendency to higher trajectory on the number of cases, maybe we can level this off, but I think the mild winter has a lot to do with it too. I mean, this is carried by flies. It's a fly larva. We've not had a hard winter really anywhere in the country with the exception of a week or two. And I just don't think we've seen the temperatures that are going to kill this threat anytime soon. So the threat, yes, it's there. I don't know how the public reacts if it does get to the U.S. I think there's a massive undereducation to the general U.S. public. I think people in the cattle industry understand it, and definitely people in the beef industry understand it, because it does not have any impact to the beef. But making the average U.S. consumer understand that it doesn't impact the beef, if they start seeing pictures of what this does to an animal, it's going to scare the hell out of them.
Oh, yeah. The ick factor really comes into play here. For sure.
Yeah, it's pretty revolting stuff when you see the damage it can cause to a carcass.
Yeah, I think we put a warning on one of our stories about one of the photos that we offered up. Yeah. And our audience is farmers and ranchers. So
right.
When we're looking at all of this, then, everyone wants to talk about that, ranchers are making good money now. Livestock producers are making good money, but it hasn't been that long since they weren't making good money. So they really still need to protect the income they've been able to make and, continue to have a profitable experience in this market. So what should they do to protect themselves?
Well, there's a variety of things you can do. Of course, as a brokerage, we have a vested interest in futures and options as hedging tools, but we also have an insurance arm. We do a lot of LRP and livestock gross margin protection as well. So there's tools out there and more than has ever been available. And honestly, better than have ever been available if you go outside of futures and options. Those products really didn't get refined until COVID era, but they did get them refined, and we actually have some pretty good stuff available. And yes, it's expensive, and I have this conversation on a daily basis. But the last time we saw even a scary break in the market, it was 10%. That's not enough to do a lot of damage from a technical perspective when you look at long-term charting. But to the pocketbook, that is a huge deal when you're talking about spending $3,000-$4,000 on these animals. 10% takes away all your money. So at least try to protect a portion. I'm not saying go out and hedge everything or get insurance coverage on every animal, but at least protect yourself to a degree and hope that this thing can continue to go.
Well, we appreciate that. I think that's good advice for ranchers to protect their assets. And we're grateful for you joining us. I didn't mention you're joining us from your vacation in Belize, hence the thatched roof there. So we greatly appreciate your time today.
No problem at all, Pam. Great to join you.
Okay. Everybody, you can tune in to farmfutures.com, sign up for our newsletters to hear every day about what's happening in the markets, the grain markets, and the livestock markets. Thank you again, Eric. Have a good day.
Have a good one.